Hi guys, in this video we're going to have a look at cubic graphs. So the first part of this is looking at how we plot them, and the second part will be how we sketch them. Okay, so let's get started. So what is a cubic? Well, a cubic follows this pattern here where we have an x cubed, you can have an x squared, you can have an x, and you can have a number. So the a, b, c and d just represent numbers here. Now of course if A, well, probably A wouldn't be it, but definitely B, C or D, they could be a zero, in which case you might have something like an x cubed with an x and a number, or you might have an x cubed, an x squared and a number, or you might even have none of those and just have an x cubed. So it doesn't always have to be all four of them. It can be a mixture of all of them. Say if some of those numbers are zero. So let's have a little look at how we can do this. I'll show you non-calculator and then I'll show you calculator. So the first one we'll do is just very simply y equals x cubed. So in this case b would be 0, c would be 0 and d would be 0, so we're not actually concentrating on those. In this case it is just the x cubed. And I've got my graph here and I need to plot this. So it may give you a table to fill in. It may not. If it doesn't, just like if you were doing quadratics or straight lines, just draw yourself a quick little table. And I've done my x values from -2 to 2 because that's what it is on my graph. Okay, so a little bit of a head start there. Right, so let's get going. This is just a nice simple one, so it's just x cubed, which means x times x times x. So in this case, if I have -2, I need to substitute -2 into that. So I'll have -2 times -2 times -2. Okay, I'll write that one down just for the first one. So -2 times -2 times -2. Now be careful with the cubics, because potentially you could get into a bit of trouble with your negatives here. If I just look at the first bit, -2 times -2, so a minus times a minus is a positive, which will give me +4 times -2, and then obviously a positive times a negative will give me a negative, which will then end up with -8. So -2 times -2 times -2 is -8. So just be a little bit careful of your negatives. I'm going to put that in straight away. Okay, so -1, so -1 times -1 times -1. Again, -1 times -1, negative times negative is positive, so give me +1, times it by -1, leaves me with -1. Okay. 0 times 0 times 0 is easy, it's 0. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1, and 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So the 0 and the positive numbers in this case are quite nice, just like we've seen before in other videos with straight lines and quadratics. Okay. So it might even be a good idea to start with those first and then work back, but with these ones it's best just to take your time and check and make sure. So you'll notice we start off coming down from here and we are slowly increasing. Okay, so just like when we're drawing our quadratic graphs, your hand naturally goes with your elbow. So if I'm trying to draw a nice smooth curve here, my wrist will naturally go that way to try and do this, and you want to hit or go through every single point that you've made as smoothly as you can. So use a pencil for this if you're in the exam, and don't forget you can rotate your paper around again so you can naturally get your wrist going with it. So I'm now going to turn it round to do this bit. Like so. Again, just keep tilting it round just so it flows nice, but definitely use a pencil in case you make a mistake and you can rub it out. So make sure you hit all those points and try and do it as smooth as you can using your wrist's natural movement and turning the paper around. Okay, so this is the next one we're going to have a look at. Y equals x cubed plus 2. So in this case the b and the c are 0, so I'm just left with my x cubed and my number at the back here. Okay, so this one should be nice and easy to do because we already know what x cubed is, and all we're going to do to each of these is just add 2. So -8 add 2 gives me -6, and then -1 add 2 is 1, 0 add 2 is 2, 1 add 2 is 3, and obviously 8 add 2 is 10. Okay, so because I've already done that, I'm just going to add those. And again, just like we did over here, I'm going to plot them. So -2, -6, -1, 1, 0, 2, 1, 3, and 2, 10. So again, I'm just going to move my paper over here to get my movement with my wrist. And you need to go through all the points as smoothly as you possibly can. And I'm going to turn it round to do the other one. And again, always use pencil. I know I'm using pen, but it's just so you can see it. Something like that. Okay. Now the reason why I did this one is to prove this point here. Here, there was no number. The D in this case was 0, and it crossed the y-axis at 0. On this one, the D would be +2. The number at the end is a 2, and it crosses the y-axis at 2. So this is the point I wanted to make with these two examples, is whatever D is, if it's a 0, or in this case it's a 2, that's where it's going to cross the y-axis. Okay, so it's a little bit there just to help you make sure you can check it as you do. And that will also come in handy when we sketch some graphs later on. Okay, let's have a look at some more. Okay, so we'll do a slightly harder one now without a calculator. So we're going to have a look at this one here. So I've got my x cubed as before. This time I have an x squared. I've also got the 3 in front of it, and I've got my number at the back. So just like I just said, that -1 will mean that I'm going to cross the y-axis at -1, but we'll cross that bridge in a minute once we've plotted some points. So this is my last example with a non-calculator, and the rest of them will be with a calculator. So this is a bit more trickier, because there's a few more parts to substitute these numbers into. So what I suggest you do, and this will be the same technique for when you have a calculator, is you put brackets around the x's, like so. Because we're going to substitute these numbers into those brackets. Just makes it a little bit easier to see what's going on. So let's give that a go. So the first one we have is x is -3, so I'm going to put that in the first bracket, and then obviously that's cubed. Then plus the 3 bracket, and we were substituting in -3 for x squared, and then -1. And the reason why I do that is because underneath you can then take it step by step and try and make sure you don't make any mistakes with these negatives. So again, -3 cubed, so -3 times -3 times -3. So -3 times -3 is +9, times that by -3 will give you -27. And then plus, I'm just going to ignore that 3 for now because we've got to do the indices first. Remember your bid maths. So -3 squared, so -3 times -3 is 9. 9 times, this is +3, gives me +27. And then, of course, -1 at the back. -1 at the back. Okay, and then you could just work that out. So -27 plus 27 is obviously nothing. Take away 1, leaves you with -1. Okay, and now we can work with -2. Again, all I'm going to do is put -2 into these brackets. Like so. And again, be careful of your negatives. -2 cubed, so -2 times -2 times -2. -2 times -2 is +4. Times that by -2 is -8. And then -2 squared, so just -2 times -2 gives me 4. Times that by 3 is 12. And then our -1 at the back there as well. So -8 plus 12 is 4. Take away 1 is 3. And we can put that in our table. Again, if they don't give you a table, make sure you just draw one to help you out. And I'm going to carry on going. This time I'm substituting in -1. Like so. -1 cubed. -1 times -1 times -1 is -1. -1 squared is just 1. Times that by 3 is 3. And then we take away 1. So -1 plus 3 is 2. Take away 1 leaves me with 1, which is what's going to go there. Excellent. And then we're going to have the 0. And we've already talked about that. It should be where it crosses the y-axis. So I'm just trying to make sure I don't copy this down wrong. So 0 cubed is obviously 0, plus 0 squared, which is 0, times 3 is 0, which is your minus 1. So yep, as we said before, because that number is minus 1, that's where it's going to cross the y-axis, so that's good. That double checks that one. And then we have 1 cubed plus 3 times 1 squared minus 1. 1 cubed is 1, 1 squared is 1, times 3 is 3, and then we take away the 1, so that's going to be 4, take away 1, leaves me with 3. And the final one, I'll do it up here because I've run out of space down there. 2 cubed plus 3 times 2 squared minus 1. 2 squared is 8. 2 cubed is 8. 2 squared is 4. Times by 3 is the 12. And then take away 1 leaves me with 19. Jumps up fairly there. Okay, once you've got your values, we can then plot them. So minus 3, minus 1, minus 2, 3 goes there, minus 1, 1, 0 minus 1 as we said before, 1 and 3, and 2 and not 19 somewhere up here. I'm not going to worry about plotting that one. Okay, so this is a more traditional looking cubic. So again, I'm just going to rotate my paper around like that, and obviously this goes up somewhere up here. Okay, so it looks something like that. Oh, I missed that one. That would dock me a mark. So that's where you'd rub it out and you'd give it another go. Okay, and this is a more traditional looking cubic. Okay, coming up from this direction, you'll hit a point where it turns, comes back down, you'll hit another point where it turns, and it'll carry on going back up. So that is a more traditional looking cubic, and that's how you do it without a calculator. Okay, so how do you do it with a calculator to speed that up? Very, very similar to this. So let's have a look. Right, let's grab this sheet. Excellent. Okay, so here we have 2. I'm going to use a calculator to do these. The process is still the same. I'm still going to put brackets around my x's like so, and I'm still going to substitute in whichever numbers I've been given. So minus 2 cubed minus 4 minus 2 squared, and then minus 6. And all I'm going to do is just going to put that into the calculator, but make sure you put that exactly like that, including the brackets, otherwise your calculator might not give you the correct answer. Okay, so then I've got my minus 2 in the bracket, then it's squared, and then it's minus 6. Okay, so that gives me minus 30. And do exactly the same thing. But the good thing is about that calculator is you don't have to keep typing this in every time. You can just use the back button and go back to the numbers inside the brackets, and instead of having minus 2, just change them to minus 1, and that gives me minus 11. So I should probably put these in as we go. So minus 30, minus 11. Next one I need to do is 0. And it should be minus 6 because that's where it's going to cross the y-axis, but we will just double check just in case it props up an error in my calculation here, because it should be minus 6, which it is. Excellent. So obviously that's fine. And next one is 1. So press the old back button, change them to 1. What do we get? We get minus 9. And then we have 2. So I can go back and change those to a 2, which gives me minus 14. Oops, I'm missing that one out. Minus 9, minus 14. And the final one here minus the squared. We just go back and we change that all for a 3. And that gives us minus 15, yeah. Okay, and if we have a look what that looks like, I've drawn it out here and printed it off. So there we can see we cross at minus 6, so that's fine, the y-axis that is. And again, we come up from this direction, we hit a point, we go back down, we hit another point, and we go back up. It's worth noting that this particular graph only has one root, and what I mean by that is it only crosses the x-axis once. If we look at the previous ones that we've done, this one here is from before. This would have 3 roots because it crosses the x-axis 3 times. And these ones at the start only have 1 root because they only cross the x-axis once. Okay, so this one here, just as the 2 we did at the start, only has 1 root. And that's just what it looks like. Okay. Okay, next one, let's have a look at this one. So this one is a little bit different. We have a minus 2 in front of the x cubed, but don't let that put you off. Just put your brackets around all the x's, and all we're going to do, I'm not going to write it out this time just to save a bit of time, is I'm just going to type it straight in. So, and the first one is minus 3 inside the bracket cubed, and then I want to plus 4 bracket, and again we're starting off with minus 3 bracket squared plus bracket minus 3 bracket minus 3 at the end there. Excellent. And that gives me 84. And then we just go back, change all those minus 3s, to minus 2s. This is why calculator speeds up. So we have 27, then go back and change them to minus 1s, like so. Just be careful you don't go too quick like I just did then. So minus 1, that gives me 2. Now, when it's the 0, where it crosses the y-axis, it should be minus 3, but just check it. Let's get rid of that minus. Yep, minus 3, so that's fine, looking good. And then just 1, 1, and 1, so that's a 0. Yep, 2 more. Obviously you can skip ahead if you want to. So that gives me minus 1, and the final one, just changing all these to a 3. And the final one there is minus 18. If you were to plot that, you get this graph here, which is slightly different. And the reason why it's different, instead of coming up here, turning, and then going back up this way, in other words, something like that, like we just saw, because that's a minus x cubed, whenever it's a minus x cubed, if it's minus 2x cubed, minus 3x cubed, minus 4, whatever, if it's a minus, it flips it the other way. So it comes from this direction, hits a point, goes back up, hits a point, and goes down. In fact, I've got that upside down, there we go. Okay, so coming down, hits a point, goes down like that. So instead of coming up and going like that, it goes the other way, and that's because it's a minus x cubed. And again, you see it crosses there at minus 3, because that's where it's the y-axis there, the minus 3 there. Okay, it's just a little point there. This one here has 3 roots because it crosses the x-axis 3 times. Okay, so that's how you can do it with a calculator, and that's how you plot them. So, how do we sketch them? That's the last thing we're going to have a look at. So, I don't want that one, I want that one, that's what I want. Excellent. So you might have something like this where it says sketch, not plot, sketch, and it gives you something like this. You may have to factorize it, okay, but likelihood is for GCSE they'll just give you something like this. Okay, and there's 2 things that you need to do. You need to work out the roots on the x-axis, and you need to work out where it crosses the y-axis. That's how you get your marks. So you could expand all of this to work out what the D is at the end, the number at the end is. However, the quick way of doing that is just to multiply these numbers, because that's all the D is. It'll just be 2 times by minus 1 times by minus 3. That's all it will be. And so you can expand it if you want to see the whole thing. It's not a problem, but that's all the quick way of doing it. So 2 times minus 1 will give me minus 2, and I need to times it by minus 3. and then minus times a minus is a positive, so that'll be 6. So this one here will cross the y-axis at 6. So that's the first thing that you need to do. The second thing, as I said, is to find the roots. So this is where the factorising into quadratics comes into handy, because you might have if you've seen that video, I talk about this. Basically, what does x need to be to make this bracket here equal to 0? Okay, so what does x need to be to make this bracket 0? Now, hopefully you can spot that x will just be minus 2, because minus 2 plus 2 gives me 0. But if it's a bit more of a tricky one, don't forget you can just rearrange it. So I've got x plus 2, I need it to equal 0. So all I'm going to do is minus 2 to both sides. So x is minus 2. Okay, it's as simple as that. And I can put that point on there. X is going to be minus 2. Same thing for here. I need to make this bracket equal to 0. You may already be ahead of me here. I'm just going to plus 1 to both sides. So x equals 1. So 1 minus 1 is 0, which is what I want. And the last one, x minus 3 equals 0. So plus 3 to both sides. So x equals 3. So I found where it crosses the y-axis, and I found my 3 roots because of these. And it's just a very quick sketch. However, you can make this look a little bit more accurate. If we look here, what most people will do is they'll go, oh, that's the turning point, and come back down and do something like this. Absolutely fine, except if you look here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares. So the turning point's probably likely to be somewhere up here to make it look like a nice smooth curve. Okay, so it's just something to bear in mind. This is the important information, but it's just something to bear in mind to make it look half right. So it'll look something like this. And then it'll shoot off somewhere. Okay, because remember, that's what a cubic looks like, unless it was a minus x cubed, where it'll be something like that, the other way around. Okay, got one more example like that, just to illustrate one more point, which is this one here. So this one here, you might be thinking, okay, minus 1 times 2 gives me the y-intercept. Be careful though, because if it's squared, which it is, x minus 1 squared, it means you times it by itself. So in fact, that is actually that. X minus 1, x minus 1, x plus 2. So to find where it crosses the y-axis, or your letter D, your number at the end of this, again, you can expand it, or do the quick way, which is just to multiply the numbers like so. And this is where you need to be careful, because you do minus 1 times minus 1, which is 1, times 2 gives you 2. But if you just did minus 1 times 2, you'd have minus 2, which would be wrong. So just need to be a little bit careful, and that's why I've included this example. Okay, so that's where it crosses the y-axis. Now we need our roots. So obviously I've got x minus 1, that needs to equal 0, so I'm going to plus 1 to both sides. So x equals 1. Happy days. Obviously that's going to be the same. X will be 1 for that. And then I've got my x plus 2. That needs to equal 0. So I'm going to minus 2 from both sides. So x is going to be minus 2, like so. Okay. Now, because I only have 2 roots, it's going to come up here, it's going to come down here, and it's just going to touch that one and go back up. It can't go past this one, because then if it comes then comes back up, there'll need to be another root, but there isn't. There's only 2 roots. So it's going to come up here, go down here, touch that, and then go back up. Okay? And that's again why I included this. So it's going to be something like, again, it's just a sketch, something like that. Okay, coming up here, hitting that, and then going back up here. As I said, the key information: where's it across the y-axis, and your roots. So that's a little bit of how you plot non-calculator and with a calculator, and how you sketch cubic. So hopefully that helps, guys. Thanks for watching. Cheers.